Good evening, everyone from Lagos, Nigeria. Uh, my name is Mayokun Adeoti, the Director, Startup Grind Lagos. Startup Grind is a global community for entrepreneurs, and our mission is to inspire, to educate, and to connect entrepreneurs. And we do this by hosting events where we invite successful entrepreneurs to come and share their stories in a fireside chat or share their knowledge through workshops. We also have other event formats like pitch battle, which we're going to be having a session in another 2 weeks. We throw parties. We have an accelerator program. We have a YouTube channel where we have lots and lots of content that are very, very useful for entrepreneurs. And once a year, we hold a conference in Silicon Valley where entrepreneurs from all over the world gather to network, to learn, and basically to grow. Here in Lagos, Nigeria, we have been operating for over 7 years, and we've had lots of sessions with amazing founders and entrepreneurs sharing with us. Tonight, we are having a workshop by an amazing entrepreneur, someone who has been in the field for years, who has been there, done that, and he's going to be teaching us quite a lot, something on the soft skills side, because to succeed as an entrepreneur, it's not only about technical knowledge, or business knowledge. You also need to have soft skills. And tonight, it's our pleasure to have Rolu Adebola as our speaker, who is going to be speaking to us on the topic, the power of vulnerability, creating safe. We'll quickly read his profile. You know, he's a business leader with over 20 years experience across global business, management consulting, and entrepreneurship. As a professional, he spent years optimizing performance for multinational organizations like MTN, Ericsson, Etisalat, Airtel, UBA Bank, and Access Bank, among many others. As an entrepreneur, he has led several companies, including CFS West Africa Limited, Branch 360 Limited, and now currently serves as the CEO of Zanantis Incorporated, a health and wellness startup operating in Nigeria. Rolu is a member of the board of directors of the Customer Institute, a global body of leading CX consultants. He also serves on the Africa Regional Council of the CXPA, the global professional body for CX consultants based in the United States. Rolu holds an MBA in international business from Tufts University, MA, United States, and is an alumni of Harvard Business School through its executive education program. He assists companies in understanding competitive advantage within a global context and is crafting strategies for winning in local markets. When Rolu is not working, he enjoys writing, hiking, and mentoring. Ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome on stage tonight our very, very highly esteemed facilitator for tonight, Mr. Rolu Adebola. You are highly welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mayoko. That was an awesome and amazing introduction. I hope I live up to the big hype at the end of the day. Well, it's nice to be here. Thank you. It's nice to be here with everyone. We're going to have an interesting session this evening, sharing and talking about a very important topic as well. I hope my audio is good. I'm sure everybody can hear me. So we'll just dive right into it. So we're discussing the power of vulnerability and creating safe spaces in startup culture. I think this is a very important topic. When Mayoko approached me with this topic, I felt this was a very good topic, something that we don't talk enough about. And I think he's been really inspired to bring it up. And I was just joking with him that it's also the kind of topic that many people don't jump at. But for those of us who are here today, hopefully we can share some stuff together and learn together and become better together. So why does vulnerability matter? Um, is the second slide showing on the screen?
Yes, it is.
Has he moved to the second slide?
Yes, it has. It's
Okay.
showing.
Did he move to the third now?
Yes, it did.
Okay, good. All right. So why exactly does vulnerability matter in startups? Startups thrive in uncertainty and rapid change, and unlike established companies, they don't have the cushion of stability. So this constant flux creates immense pressure for founders and their teams. And because founders are typically tasked with achieving ambitious goals with limited resources and under tight deadlines. So one of the most effective antidotes to this kind of pressure is vulnerability in leadership and teamwork. When leaders admit that they don't have all the answers, it creates spaces for innovation and trust. And then when team members can express themselves, express their struggles, their fears, their problems, they can ask for help without judgment. Collaboration becomes deeper and more authentic. I think the important thing to note is that this is an ideal, and this is what really should be. Unfortunately, in startups globally, this is not just a Nigerian problem or an African problem. All over the world, startups have a problem when it comes to creating a work environment where people can regard that as a safe space. So this is a challenge for startups, and I think it's a critical issue. And the more important that this is the topic that Mayoko has settled on for discussion today. Mayoko, you'll be assisting me with the system so that I'm sure. Has it moved to the next slide? Thank you. Thank you. So, what are the myths that are, embedded in this issue when we discuss vulnerability? Within our context, our culture, and often within a startup culture, we often mistake vulnerability for weakness. But in reality, it takes great courage for a founder to present himself in an authentic manner, admitting mistakes. This sort of strengthens the work culture and builds the right kind of environment. So the first myth is that vulnerability equals weakness, but the truth is that it actually, takes courage, not weakness. You have to be really strong, mentally and psychologically, to be able to admit the true situation of things and to be authentic. So if you admit what you don't know, it strengthens the trust within the environment, and people tend to be able to be themselves and express themselves. So we'll talk a bit about that more as we go on. Now, leaders who admit that they don't have all the answers, they inspire openness in their communities. They inspire openness within their workspaces. They inspire openness within the work environment, and they inspire openness within the culture. So if you want to build a work culture that is open or that prioritizes openness, it's important that you're able to admit your vulnerability, express that vulnerability in the right way within the team, and then your colleagues and team members are able to key into that so that they too can be themselves. It also encourages creativity and shared problem solving, as against people just trying to wing it or trying to keep up appearances. Now, a safe space is actually a work environment first. It's not a physical space. It's actually the work environment where employees feel respected, empowered to share their perspectives and their concerns, and where they're not afraid of judgment or afraid of being tagged or afraid of being stigmatized. So that is what a safe space is. But oftentimes when you're having meetings, you're able to say this is a safe space. So that's like you can define that and say this is a safe space, and feel free to express yourself. The things you say here are not going to be used against you, or they're not going to be recorded and played back over and over again while you're in this company. Now, you also need to encourage open dialogue without, the fear of judgment, and then promote inclusion, diversity of thoughts, and empathy. Again, I have to say that this is an ideal, but from our experience in many work environments, this does not happen. What we do notice is the fact that people don't want to talk. People don't want to look weak. People don't want to look like they don't know. People don't want to be the ones, that look incompetent. And then you have leaders who are constantly, intimidating, colleagues and their team members, and making those ones feel inadequate. So because of that, nobody really wants to be themselves. Nobody really wants to admit what they don't know. And I've been in some environments like that, and I can tell you it is crazily toxic. They think it's a high pressure environment that forces you to up your game. But the reality is that it's dysfunction. It's just basically dysfunction. And because it's dysfunction, things are not attended to because everybody's keeping up appearances. Processes are just junked. And in place of processes that ought to help people, you substitute that with bragado and a whole lot of intimidation. So again, that's what obtains, and that's a far cry from what should. In an ideal environment, we need to be encouraging open dialogue without fear of judgment and promoting inclusion, diversity of thought, and of course, empathy. Now, benefits of safe spaces. There are many benefits of safe spaces in a startup culture. You have stronger team cohesion. People are able to lean and rely on each other and help each other. There's reduced burnout and stress. There's better innovation and risk taking. And there's increased resilience during challenges. People are able to band together, face problems, resolve problems, rather than keeping up appearances. And I think it's also a good place to say that the failure of any startup that does not incorporate this is not far. Because even when team members are seeing problems, nobody wants to talk about it. And problems will fester, problems will grow, and then before you know what is happening, even the startup's own survival itself becomes a problem. Now, I want to dive quickly into 10 features of a leader that manifests vulnerability. So just trying to break it down into certain characteristics, features that we can identify with. So I'm going to run through that because of time, but as we go through, we're just going to be engaging on each of the points. So the first one is candor. Like I said, it takes courage to show vulnerability. It's not a weakness. So you need to be able to demonstrate candor and be transparent and come to the team and say, this is the problem. And lots of times we're reading about startups that folded up. Startup folding up is not supposed to be a problem, even though our people tend to see it as a problem. Startups typically are expected many times to fold up. But there's a proper way to do it. And it's also not always inevitable. But you find startups with problems and the leader is still telling the team members there's no problem, we're going on. And then one day they're all locked out or they're pink slips or the office is not open. So that kind of betrayal doesn't help. There has to be openness. There has to be candor. Or we've got 2 months of runway left. We're not sure about if we're going to be able to keep it on for 6 months. So if you want to stay, let's put in our best. But if you can't, we'll understand. That kind of candor, that kind of communication is something that helps people to know what they want to do. They can come to work the next day with suggestions. People may want to help. People can understand why certain things are delayed. But without candor, where the leader is just being duplicitous, just telling them a different thing when there's a different reality. So this is a problem that a lot of African startups face. It takes courage to be able to look your team in the eyes and tell them the true state of things. And it doesn't make you less of a man or a woman. So you have to admit, uncertainty builds trust and sets the tone for honesty. Leaders who openly admit that they don't know what to do, they set the tone for honesty. But this is very unlike the typical African male figure, because most of us are used to looking like we're in control even when we're not. That's why they say African men, they don't ask for directions on the road. And I found it to be true even with myself. So many times, we tend to want to do it. We tend to want to power through. But candor with your team is important. Being able to let them know exactly what is happening and being honest with them, being transparent. So instead of faking confidence, show courage by being transparent. In startups where uncertainty is a constant, it creates a culture where team members also feel safe admitting their own gaps, seeking help, and leading to faster solutions. So you open it up, we can deal with it. But you don't, then it festers. And then it becomes a culture within the organization that nobody is dealing with the problems and everybody's just keeping up appearances. Now, uncertainty is the second thing. Vulnerable leaders embrace uncertainty. Startups are always navigating uncharted waters. So you're never in control. There's this illusion of control, but you're never in control. So you need to embrace not knowing and normalize experimentation and learning. And many times, many of us are in that stage right now. We know where we want to be. See, if it was that easy and there was a pathway, you won't be the only one doing it. Everybody will be doing it. The truth of the matter is that you're a unicorn, or you're rare, or you're unique, because what you're trying to do hasn't been done before. And because of that, even when you're trying to do something that somebody else is doing, the way you are approaching it is different. Now, because of that, there's a lot of things you won't know, or you can't know until you've discovered or done it. So we can't always live in this bubble where there's a certainty. There's really no certainty in a lot of what we're doing. And we haven't even talked about market uncertainty. We're just talking about even the chart in front of you, trying to navigate as a business. So acknowledging this truth, it helps to normalize vulnerability. And by accepting that everyone is figuring it out as they go, leaders can foster a culture where experimentation, iteration, and mistakes are embraced rather than punished. You have leaders, you're working with them and they're like, you don't know. They make it look like a crime that you don't know something. And that becomes a problem within the organization, because who are we deceiving? There are a lot of things people don't know. And there are a lot of things we're trying to do that people also don't know. So the earlier we're all honest with each other and try to, know that there's a culture of discovery or discovering within that organization, rather than a culture of make-believe. The earlier we can fix that, the higher the chances that startup will survive. Now, reality is the third one. You have to embrace truth instead of projecting perfection. You have to face reality. And if you face reality, that builds credibility and resilience. Now, at its core, vulnerability is about embracing reality rather than projecting perfection. Acknowledging challenges and setbacks or failures, it makes the team grounded. And leaders who face reality directly build credibility, they foster resilience, and they prepare their startups to adapt and to grow stronger. And this is true if you have the right team members, just because they know how things are and they know that we will face it as it is, it builds a culture of people being realistic, both in their own work and in their expectations. The fourth thing is sincerity. Consistency in words and actions builds credibility. And sincere leaders, they strengthen trust and relationships. So you have to be sincere, because that's what builds your own credibility as a leader. Now, when when they sincerely care about their team's well-being and the mission, it shows through consistent words and actions. Vulnerability enhances sincerity by allowing leaders to admit missteps, seek forgiveness, and build stronger trust-based relationships. So, again, this is against the archetype male figure that we have in Africa. We don't admit mistakes. We don't admit we are wrong. We don't apologize. Yeah, I know these are typically personality things with African males, and also other cultures apart from Africans. But the truth is that your team members will respect you more if they can see that you're a really sincere person. And if they understand the fact that if you're wrong, you will admit it. And I think them a lot that when they too are wrong, they can admit it. Part of the problem you have in organizations is that things are wrong, people are wrong, mistakes are being made, but nobody's admitting it. Again, I keep going back to the fact that over time, those things kill an organization because something has gone wrong, but nobody wants to face up to it. So everybody's lying and everybody's avoiding and everybody is keeping up appearances just because we don't have a culture where we can say, I'm sorry, I messed that up, I'll fix it. Or I'm sorry, I was wrong, I didn't do this right. That's not gonna happen again. So we need to build a culture where that is what a safe space is, where people can actually admit their wrongs and can be sincere. And if we don't fix that, we will be the ones who would eventually suffer it because the organization is never going to be able to face up to the realities of what's happening. Either it's churn or its systems not working or its processes failing. Everybody is coming to the table and saying, yeah, it's great when it's not, just because we don't have a culture where people can admit the truth. So the fifth one is adaptability. Like we earlier mentioned, uncertainty is constant in a startup. Control is a mirage. So many times, startup leaders try to project this illusion of control, that they're in control, but nobody's in control. Certainly not with the kind of economy we have. Certainly not with the kind of policies that come up. Certainly not with the competition. And certainly not with the uncertainties that are in the market. So control is a mirage. It's an illusion. And the earlier we make people understand that it's not about keeping control, it's about ensuring that our objectives are met in spite of the challenge. Again, that builds the kind of culture that sustains an organization. So by letting go of this illusion, leaders can embrace vulnerability and adaptability. This mindset frees the team to focus on responding creatively to change rather than resisting change or keeping up appearances. Now, the sixth one is humility. You need to be open to feedback, open to collaboration, and open to collective wisdom. I know a lot of startup leaders, there's that thing that said we collaborate, and collaboration for them is we all discuss, I decide, you execute. So that tends to be the culture. They will gather you all together, everybody will discuss, but they decide at the end of the day, like, is what they want that will still happen. And after that, they now dump it on the people to go and execute. So that is not collaboration. Collaboration really is, having everybody be a stakeholder in the outcome and taking on the wisdom of everybody. Just because to start with, you want to recognize that they have something to offer. But I've worked with a lot of startup leaders that's not what they do. It's what they want that will happen at the end of the day. And that irrespective of what anybody else says. Why do you hire people if you're not going to listen to them? And so we have a lot of that happening in our organizations. A very, very toxic startup culture that a lot of organizations have. And I don't know what they're doing with it. So you need to be open to feedback. You need to be open to collaboration. There has to be collectivism in the wisdom and outcome. And then you need to put the mission over your ego. I remember a lot of times when there are decisions to be made in my company. So when we were choosing a logo, I'll open it up to everybody. And there will be this logo that I really love and I want. But at the end of the day, most people are saying, no, we don't want this. This is what we prefer. That's the one I choose because I'm humble enough to understand that I'm not in the market for myself. I'm in the market for other people. So that sort of thing, a lot of times I've had to give up what I want, what I feel, what I believe, just because people are showing that, something else is preferred. You have to have the humility to be able to let go and let other wisdom have the day at the end of the day. So you need to put the mission over ego. You need to listen to your people. Humility keeps leaders approachable, and it's a natural outcome of vulnerability. A leader who admits that they don't have all the answers, they remain approachable and open to ideas. This fosters collaboration, it reduces the risk of a toxic culture. Now, humility fosters continuous learning, growth, and improvement. And these are qualities that actually define a resilient startup. A real resilient startup culture is one that is defined by continuous improvement and growth. You're not going to have that when we can't even admit what is wrong and what needs to be done. The seventh one is understanding, vulnerability, asking questions, seeking clarity, aligning with the mission, avoiding assumptions. Vulnerability involves asking and admitting you don't understand everything. So leaders who seek clarity, who ask questions, who try to learn, especially from their team, they grow the most. They build the best and the strongest teams. It encourages teams to look deeper into goals, align with missions, and avoid assumptions. Strengthens trust and execution. Then, of course, there's authenticity. You need to show up as yourself. Your strengths, your weaknesses, you need to be confident with that. When you're authentic, you invite others to be authentic. So, but again, I've worked with a lot of startups where what you see is eye service. People just keeping up appearances, people staying at work late, doing nothing. At the end of the day, you feel there's a lot of activity, but there's no progress. 7, 5, 6, 8 years into that startup, they're still on the same spot. They haven't really made progress because you just have a lot of eye service, a lot of people keeping up appearance. And then you have leaders who, what's the word? They favor certain staff that have perfected this ability to keep up appearances and show eye service. So the other staff pull back because they see the emptiness. See, there's no sincerity in the entire organization. So this whole thing happens when you have leaders who themselves are not authentic, who themselves are not grounded, who themselves are not being real. Then you have team members as well who learn to put up with a lot of eye service just to do what the leader wants. So in startups, authentic leaders invite others to bring their full selves to work so that we know you as you are and we can work together as we are. This creates psychological safety. Innovation will thrive because people don't waste energy hiding behind masks. People don't waste time keeping up appearances. People don't waste time making believe instead of actually doing real work. Now, vulnerability keeps leaders grounded, open to feedback, eager to listen, and ready to step aside when there's superior wisdom in the room. The ninth one is communication. Like I said, talk to your people, don't talk at your people. Again, a lot of startups, there's a lot of talking at people rather than talking with people. You share your doubts, share your lessons, be open about your mistakes, be open about your doubts, be open about your limitations. Now, honest dialogue builds trust and prevents hidden problems, like we've been discussing. And vulnerability is most powerfully expressed through communication. So we have to be open in sharing the realities that we're in, our struggles, our lessons, and our problems. So leaders, authentic leaders, vulnerable leaders, they normalize honest dialogue within the organization. Now, this builds trust and encourages team members to voice their concerns, and it prevents hidden problems from festering. The last one, the 10th, is assurance. You have to be a leader who is self-assured. And I really think that this is important and I want to address it. Leaders must be self-assured. They've dealt with esteem issues. A lot of leaders have self-esteem issues. Really, a lot of self-esteem issues. For a lot of them, it's the first time they're in leadership, and they do not understand that leadership is not lording it over other people. A startup is not the place to become the man or woman you have always dreamed of being. Certainly not by lording it over others. You must be self-sufficient in yourself. It's not that startup that is going to make you a hero. You're not a hero because you're employing people. They're team members. They're not your servants. So I've seen a lot of startup leaders who don't get this. They come into an organization and it becomes not a safe space, but it becomes their dominion space. And they really want to dominate that space. And they do that by throwing their weight around and lording it over people. And that shows a significant flaw in that personality because he hasn't dealt with it himself. And the outcome of that is always a very toxic environment because sub-leaders take that same character after him and everybody's talking down at people. Everybody's talking down at people and talking down at people, and people come in there 100%, they leave 10%. You keep reducing people instead of increasing them. And all that because the leader never really dealt with his own self-deficiencies. And this is a part of authenticity, and it's a part of vulnerability. You have to admit to yourself your limitations and admit to yourself if you're insufficient. And you have to find your sufficiency elsewhere, not in that organization. Otherwise, you will fall into the trap of dominating unnecessarily. And that's going to create a toxic culture. And this is real. This is something I've experienced in a lot of startups. So many founders with unresolved personal issues, they see their colleagues as fair game for intimidation and control. Toxic is never okay. Anytime you see a toxic environment, 99% of the time, it's because of the leader. I think leaders who think that the toxic environment within the environment is caused by other subordinates and other, it's a lie. This thing actually flows from the top. No matter the managers you bring in with their culture, if they find out that you as the boss, you don't talk to your people anyhow. You as the boss, you respect everyone. You as the boss, you build people and you encourage them to be their best selves. They will adapt. There cannot be a toxic culture if the leader himself does not have deficiencies. And it is the deficiencies of the leaders that leads to a toxic culture. And that is the exact opposite of a safe space. I had a friend work in a startup before, and he was going to leave his salary, after 2 months and say, if they like, they shouldn't pay me. I'm not going there for one more day. It was that bad. And he was a great leader in this our environment. So these are realities that we're facing in the market with leaders who haven't dealt with their deficiencies and who create toxic cultures because they do not understand the power of authenticity and vulnerability. So when there's no vulnerability within an organization, you have fear, you have toxicity, you have failure, and you have high staff. In conclusion, vulnerability is not weakness, it is strength. And by creating safe spaces, and we run through 10 different features of what we can see in such a culture. By creating such safe spaces, startups, they unlock trust, they unlock resilience, they unlock loyalty, and they unlock the power for innovation. Lead with vulnerability, build cultures that thrive on openness and empowerment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was an amazing one. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, Rolu, for for that awesome presentation. Man, it really, really blew my mind. Man, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm sure everyone on the call must have learned quite a number of things tonight. Man, thank you. Okay, so let me ask the first question before I throw the floor open to our attendees tonight. What advice would you have for a leader, a CEO who who is vulnerable, like who tries to be as vulnerable as possible to the team members, and for the team members, for some of them, due to their own nature or due to their own weaknesses, they begin to look down on the leader or begin to disrespect him because he's trying to be humble, he's trying to communicate, he's trying to, get their opinions, just trying to be vulnerable, and then they begin to, just take him for granted. What advice would you have for such a leader?
Vulnerability is an expression, it's not a natural trait. It's an expression, it's something you express within an organization. Vulnerability means that you're open, it means you're authentic, it means all the things that we've spoken about. But it doesn't mean you're weak. If you're a weak leader, you're a weak leader. That's a problem. Again, that's part of vulnerability. If you're vulnerable, you recognize that you're a weak leader and you seek help. All right. Now, the question you're asking is very akin to a circumstance or situation where the leader is weak, not where he is manifesting vulnerability. So when I come to a meeting, I tell my people, I said, I don't really know how to go about this. That's vulnerability. But that doesn't mean that I will take nonsense from anybody in the organization. That's number one. When you misbehave, I also would call you and just say, you didn't do this right. You can't continue to do this. A leader has to be strong, at the same time vulnerable. You have to have processes in place. And I always say, I've had a lot of subordinates who've abused me openly in front of everybody before. And I always make it a point not to use it against them. So I never sacked anybody for being rude to me. I never did. But I sacked a lot of people for not doing their work. So that is the balance we need. You are here to do something. So long as you're doing it well, you can abuse me. I don't care. You are here to do what you're meant to do. But once you're not doing what you're meant to do, that becomes a different problem. And it's always easy to just say, yeah, you're supposed to do 4. You're consistently doing 1. So this job is not for you. We may have to, encourage you to look somewhere else. So usually I would say, I'll give you a month extra salary, but you need to resign, and just ease them off. So I've sacked a lot of people like that. But I've never sacked anybody for talking at me, because I'm a very self-assured person. So I'm not intimidated. I can't count how many of my staff have had blow-ups with me at different times. They'll shout on me, they'll come back and apologize. But for me, it's nothing. I mean, you're confronting me on an issue, we have a disagreement. Are you doing your work? That's what matters. I will sack people for breaking codes. I'll sack people for doing the wrong things. I'll sack people for being untrustworthy. I'll sack people for different things. But I'll never sack somebody for standing up to me, so long as they're doing their work. So this aspect of being very selfish, there are leaders who can't stand strong, independent personalities. That's just because they themselves are deficient. That's where vulnerability comes in. It comes in with you accepting. So if you're a weak leader, accept you're weak and seek help, because the weakness is not going to help the organization either. But a strong leader is not intimidated by all these things. And when you were asking that question, I was going to ask that, is he the one that pays their salary? If he's the one that pays their salary and you're rude to him, you find job somewhere else. But the point I'm making is that so long as you're the boss, you're the boss. You don't have to throw your weight around for people to know that you're the boss. Yeah, so long as you keep reminding people you're the boss, you've already lost the plot. That should come naturally when you're a leader. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
yes, it does. At least it clarifies the fact that being vulnerable doesn't make you weak, and it doesn't mean you should be weak. Vulnerability with strength. It's how to lead an organization. But then I must really say that you are a very strong leader. For you to take, abuses, from your staff, and still accommodate them. I'm sure not a lot of people would do that. So it takes a certain level of strength and humility to be able to, keep working with someone who openly abuses you. I know quite a number of people who would not even want to hear that they are talking behind their back, maybe gossiping behind your back, and maybe it now kind of gets into your ears. So many leaders wouldn't take that lightly. So not to talk of, somebody coming to abuse you openly. So then,
so one of the things you try to do in an organization is to major on the majors and minor on the minors. It's always the flip side in Africa, unfortunately. And I keep saying that, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that. Because I've worked overseas as well, and it's not like that in many places there. Here we tend to focus on petty things, personal. We get personal, we get petty, and then we do minors a lot. So the major things we always neglect. And many times that's why many organizations do not scale or become big. Because you have leaders who are just focused on, did you greet me today? This person didn't greet me well. This person spoke to me anyhow. This person did this person. So we get so personal, we get so petty, we get so bogged down with the minors that we can't actually focus on the major things we need to be doing. Now, in my own organization, that was a policy I made. If you were getting personal, I just wasn't going to be involved in all that. So that's why it happened even in front of all the staff. I'll reply you there and kill it there, but I don't take it beyond that because I made up my mind I'll never be petty. I would never be petty or personal when within the organization. Everything has to be by the books. Everything has to be by the process. Everything has to be by the standards. So once you focus more on that, you'll really usually have an easier life. Either you want to sack somebody, you have a clear reason to sack the person. Either you want to do promotion and somebody, you have a clear reason. But that being petty and personal is something a lot of us also need to keep dealing with. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. So quickly, I'm throwing the floor open for anyone who has questions for Rolu tonight. We have about 10 minutes to the end of the call. So if you want to ask a question, just raise up your hand and you will be given the mic. Questions? Questions? Joseph, Julius, Catherine, Akinola, Timothy, Joshua, Ignatius, Pedro, Chubike, Efe, Rhoda, Chigozie, Leslie Doe, our director from Startup Ghana, Abuja. Thank you for joining the call. Do we have any questions tonight? Or is everything that Rolu has shared with us, is it all clear to every one of us? Or you can just unmute yourself. Maybe many of us really don't know how to use this application. We are quite new to it. So if you can find the mute button, just unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, I can see two hands. Julius, you have the floor. After that, we'll
All
take
right.
Chubuike.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. We can see from there that how vulnerable we are as a leader, especially in terms of startup. Yeah, we can then now see how we can manage this, and it's a very powerful presentation. Thank you very much, sir. My question is about in a team or in a team of a startup, most of the thing you are doing, you don't see everything fully until you get to a point where you need to do some certain things. So that is actually things I learned personally in a startup, because you don't see the full version of what you are doing until you get to a challenges. You now say, oh, how can we do this? So there's always this person in a team that is always find the problem. It's always problem. So can we see that kind of person as a good part of the team, or is this something that is trying to sabotage the system? So I just want to know how important is somebody in a team that is always, always that one to find the problem, to find why certain things is going to be difficult to do. So that's my question, sir.
Wow, that's a very amazing question. That's a really, really amazing question. So number one, you really don't want to encourage a mindset where somebody's only always seeing problems. You should never encourage it. At the same time, it has some benefit. So this person has a natural predisposition to see the other side of things. People are like that. Some of us are optimists, some of us are pessimists, some of us are realists. So we differ. So once you have identified that this is what this person does, you need to call the person. Communication is part of vulnerability. and say, I like the fact that you always see the other side of issues. It's good. But, you know, if you keep seeing the other side of issues, that's not growth. So I need you to add to that your ability to see why things will work. So now you're helping that person change. You're helping that person, yes, reform from being a chronic, I don't want to use the word negative, but I know what you're saying because, you know, I know personalities like that. But he doesn't know. He doesn't realize. And that's why you're a leader. You're transformational. So you tell him, this is what you do. And it's not like it's bad, but you need to learn to also do the other perspective. So when we say we're going to do this, and it's like, the market won't take it, the people won't buy it, say, good. Sometimes you want to write some of those things down because, again, it's just good to have somebody that gives you the other side to think about. It's very important in brainstorming. When you've written it down, you now ask him, so why will this thing work? Because he's told you why it will not work. He needs to now think. So he needs to learn to rewire his brain, but you're the one who can lead him in that process. So everybody else has to be quiet and he has to force himself to start thinking about the good in that thing. Then you write it down and then you open it up for discussion. And over time, it may take a couple of weeks of doing that with him at meetings. You will notice that now before he talks, he will first ask himself, what will make this thing work? Before I come out and tell them why it should not work. So I think that that's how to deal with that kind of person. But they don't know. It's a natural inclination. But the leader has to be transformational by accepting them for who they are and encouraging them to be better. And also leading the entire team in that process and saying, yeah, this guy tells us why this thing won't work. We've written it down. But he needs to tell us why it works. And you also need to tell us why it works. And everybody needs to put heads together in that direction. So somehow it becomes a learning experience. I don't know if that helps with the question.
That is very, very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now let's hear from Chibuike Felix. Chibuike, you have the mic.
All right. Greetings, everyone. I came a little bit late when he was wrapping up, and I'm crossing my fingers in the sense that probably he hasn't addressed what I'm about to ask, because it's all about leadership and power dynamics. So number one question is, how can startup founders and leaders model vulnerability without eroding the authority or even investors' confidence? Then the second one is, what concrete actions can leaders take to ensure that safe spaces aren't biased towards only certain groups or voices? Thank you.
Awesome. That's a really important question. So I think we addressed some of it previously. Vulnerability is not weakness. Weakness is a flaw. And but part of vulnerability is that if a leader has weakness as a flaw, they should seek help and deal with it. And this is critical in a sense if you think about it. If I'm a weak leader and I do not accept the fact that I'm weak, I tend sometimes to overcompensate for my weakness by being erratic or misbehaving, unnecessarily trying to be aggressive, or unnecessarily trying to be dominant. So these are all ways people cover up for inherent weaknesses in themselves. And those things always damage the work culture. So yeah, you can model vulnerability. Like I said, it's an expression. It's not a character. Vulnerability is something we manifest. It's not something that is a permanent character of a person. So you model vulnerability by creating openness, creating communication, making people be themselves, making people express themselves, making people admit their limitations and helping people grow. That's how you model it, but you don't do it by being a weak person. That's that. So you can model vulnerability within an environment without engendering weaknesses. Also, the outcome of admitting is not to wallow, but it's to improve. So we go from, guys, we don't know what to do. It then becomes, let's get together and solve this problem. Not, we don't know what to do, therefore we don't know what to do. So this is where it starts, yeah? It goes from, guys, I don't know everything, so we need to get together and figure it. Not, I don't know everything, and that's how it stays. So vulnerability isn't an end in itself. It's always a means to an end. That's how you use it within an organization. Then your second question was about creating safe spaces without setting groups. Again, that's something about openness, which we talked about in the presentation. If people are being left out, if people are being driven to the back by certain dominant personalities, or if certain people feel some are being favored over others, in an organization where there's openness and sincerity and communication, those things will come out and be addressed. But in an organization where those things are missing, people will hide, and that problem will fester. Then it leads to more toxicity within the organization. I hope that helps with the question.
It does, but I'm just wondering, are there measures? Is there a way you can measure that?
Measure? Yeah, you can measure participation. You can measure participation, you can measure involvement. You have places or meetings where certain people are always talking. They're trying to be stars, and it's good. But as the leader, you have to the other people that are not talking. And we've all heard this. A lot of times people who don't talk in a room are sometimes the most intelligent. So if you have certain people who are always the stars, before you bring an issue, they're already blasting away. Great, you need them. Then you as the leader have to consciously seek out those other people who are not active. So that's how you do it. By hearing their voice, by calling them into private sessions to ask them. So you just had a meeting. Everybody spoke. These 2-3 people didn't speak. They left. Then after the meeting, you call 1 or 2 of them and say, guys, you didn't talk during the meeting. I want to hear your views. And I say, everything is fine. I say, no, not in this organization. You can't say everything is fine. I want to, in this place, you have to tell me what you really think. If you don't, go and come back. So that's a leader has to challenge his people, has to balance it, and has to be active in balancing it. Yeah, I think that's the way I see you can merge it.
Thank you. So we'll take one more question. It's already in the chat from Joseph. Joseph says, how do you encourage equality and fair, accurate representation within a workspace?
So the inequality would always come out where there is openness. Again, I keep saying that. All right? Inequality will be there. Don't let's pretend that it will not be there. It will be there. But it will come out once that environment is a safe space. Because people can't hide it for too long. But where there's a toxic environment and there's lack of sincerity, there's lack of authenticity, there's lack of openness, there's lack of communication, there's lack of sincerity, all those 10 things that we went through, it will hide. Inequality will fester. So inequality will exist in an environment because that's natural. There's no perfect environment. But because there's openness, and because there's sincerity, and because there's authenticity, and because there's vulnerability, because you have a leader that is authentic and open, it will come out. Somebody is bound to say, this is not happening, or that group is not being attended to, those people are being neglected, or certain people are being favored in this organization. Also, it definitely is going to come out because people, they're working in an environment where they can express themselves. If the people who are affected don't say it, other people who are not affected will say it. Because it's an environment where people speak their mind. So that is, and Mayoko was, happy when I said, staff talking to me and I didn't, because you cannot at the same time not encourage people to speak their mind and at the same time want them to speak their mind. You can't have it both ways. So you choose one. Sometimes in speaking their mind, you may not like what they say, but you are a self-assured person, so you can live with it. But when you're a deficient person in yourself, little things will now get on your nerves. You'll be angry. Start personalizing and petty things. So in an environment where there's openness, communication, sincerity, authenticity, and where the leader models vulnerability, it will come out. That kind of environment, you cannot hide inequality. Somebody will bring it out. You will see it. If you don't see it, somebody will say it. Somebody will vex one day and even blast it out. Then you will be forced to address it. So these are the benefits and advantages of modeling vulnerability within an organization.
Wow, wow, wow. Let's give it up for Rolu Adebola tonight. It has really been a phenomenal session. And on behalf of Startup Grind Lagos community, Startup Grind Nigeria, and Startup Grind Global, we are really, really grateful for your time, sharing with us tonight, even at a very short notice. I just started you up on LinkedIn and less than 2 weeks ago, and there you are, today giving us this amazing, wealth of knowledge. We are really, really grateful. So that was.
Thank you for having me as well. Thank you for having me or thinking of me to come share with us today. It's also been a wonderful session for me to be with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Rolu Adebola is the CEO of Zanantis Incorporated, a health and wellness startup operating in Nigeria. So in case you want to meet with him, you want to consult him, of course, you can always reach out. Rolu, if you wouldn't mind, can you drop how we can get across to you, maybe your social media, in the chat room, so that our attendees can always reach out anytime they need you. Thank
they can
you.
also they can send me a message on WhatsApp. So
Okay.
I just put my number there. So that's good. They can reach out directly on WhatsApp and just reference this. Once they reference this session, I would know. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. So once again, this session is recorded. It's gonna be put on YouTube, and the link is gonna be made available for those of us who would like to watch it again. I'm definitely gonna watch this again and again, because this session speaks a lot to me, So thank you everyone for joining. Once again, Rolu, thank you. I hope that when we come knocking again, you are going to oblige us of your, presence, to come and speak.
Anytime. Happy, always happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Great, great, great. Okay, so at this junction, we call it a wrap for tonight's session. My name is Mayoko Adeoti, and on behalf of the SG Lagos community, I wish everyone a brilliant week ahead. Take care and keep grinding. Good night.